I live? I think I'm live. I feel live. Hi, everybody. It's John Flynn here. What a week. A lot of highs, some lows, which I'll probably talk about a bit tonight. But happy holidays to everybody here on a Saturday. Good Saturday, as the Catholics call it. I'd like to say I wasn't on last night because of religious convictions, it being Good Friday and all, but truth was I ran 18 miles yesterday. I'm training for the Delaware Marathon in a few weeks, and I couldn't get out of the chair. So maybe it was a combination. We put it off till tonight. Anyway, welcome to my B.A.D. Gonna open up with a new song. And I did this one a couple of weeks ago. And I warned you guys that it may change, which it indeed has. It's a song I wrote to my old guitar here. I bought this Martin in 1979 with the money that I had saved up to pay my tuition bill for my final year at Temple University. I did end up graduating from Temple, it just took a little longer. But I never regretted spending the money. In Nazareth they did produce, from rosewood and from Sitka spruce, a friend of mine who like me seemed both fool and brave enough to dream. Back then our faces seemed to shine, till flat picks carved and Sharpies signed the names of those who left their marks indelibly upon our hearts. Kindred spirits bound together, sometimes by a strap of leather. Roads we shared and deeper things that drew and dared our souls to sing. We worked our way up from the bars and opened shows for shooting stars as bands of brothers came and went. Songs became like sacraments, sometimes drunk and out of tune. We howled half crazy at the moon. Change is clearing us of crimes that we'd commit with ragged rhymes. We stood with heroes on the stage and sang for those kept in a cage, others that the world disdained as through the long years we remained. Kindred spirits bound together, sometimes by a strap of leather. Roads we shared and deeper things that drew and dared our souls to sing. I'd make my stand with it slung across my back when we were young. Now We're both longer in the tooth, still out here trying to tell the truth. With shield and buckler raised against this world's bemused indifference to errant knights who'd rather fail than yield the quest to seek the grail. Yeah, we've been cheered and we've been booed, but mostly I feel gratitude, unbound by fame and fortune's myth, for friends this highway's blessed me with. Kindred spirits bound together sometimes, never knowing whether roads we shared or deeper things drew or dared our souls to sing. In Nazareth they did produce, from rosewood and from Sitka spruce, a friend of mine who like me seemed both fool and brave enough to dream, bucking headwinds and the tide of expectations to decide a poet's path could set us free. We went for broke and came to be. Kindred spirits bound together, sometimes by a strap of leather. Roads we shared, and deeper things that drew and dared our souls to sing. That's getting closer. That's getting closer. Hey, Danny. Hello, Heidi. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Tony. Heidi wrote to me and asked for this song tonight in honor of our old friend, Danny Timms. I didn't know Danny well. I got to sing with him one time in Tulsa at Kane's Ballroom, where we did a special show with Chris Christopherson. And, of course, I knew of Danny and his work with Chris. So anyway, Too Young Gone, another gentle and beautiful spirit and very talented man taken from us, and always remembered, especially in his music. And this is one of his very beautiful compositions that I think Chris basically contributed the lyrics to, if I'm right. But was it wonderful for you? Was it holy as it was for me? Did you feel the hand of destiny that was guiding us together? You were young enough to dream, and I was old enough to learn something new. I'm so glad I got to dance with you for a moment of forever. Sometimes when you're crying, you're happy. Sometimes when you're crying, I know. Come, whatever happens now. Ain't it nice to know the dreams still come true? I'm so glad that I was close to you for a moment of forever. Sometimes when you're crying, you're happy. Sometimes you're just crying. I know, I know. Come, whatever happens now. Ain't it nice to know that dreams still come true? I'm so glad that I was close to you for a moment of forever. That key's a little low for me. I can't go quite as deep as Chris. Of forever. Anyway, kind of an amazing week in a lot of ways. I got to have lunch at the what was it called? The Mental Health Association of Delaware. They employ one of my guys from Gander Hill. A friend of mine named Anthony got his certification as a peer support specialist while he was finishing up a 22-year stay in prison. And Anthony went from Gander Hill Prison to a work release facility. And for the 6 months he was there, he was interning with the Mental Health Agency of Delaware. And recently was hired as a full-time peer support specialist. And he is a rock star at the agency, and I got a call from his boss asking if I would come down and have lunch with the staff there, because Anthony was talking so highly about New Beginnings and the work we do with guys inside and after prison. And it was truly humbling, because as I told our guys, pretty much if you boil my job down, I start the session with, let's take some deep breaths. And then I ask, so how are you doing? What's going on? And what we are able to do in New Beginnings is to create a safe space. And the safe space allows guys to take some risks and do some excavation, and that work leads to maybe the beginning of some healing, and certainly some resiliency, which helps them when they get out of prison, and we continue to get together on the outside. So it was just a joy to see Anthony and all the respect of his coworkers and all the admiration that they had for him. And then a day later, 2 days later, I got to be in Dover, Delaware, at the courthouse, the Kent County Courthouse, and stand with one of my guys. I met this gentleman 14 years ago when he was in prison, and he's been out 10 years now, and I got to stand with him as he spoke to the pardon board. And I didn't know if I was going to be asked to speak, so of course I had a couple ideas, but I hadn't really thought much about it because I figured the best I can do if that situation arises is just open my heart and speak from it. So I was trusting that whatever I would be called to do, I would be able to pull off. But my friend didn't need me, you know. He spoke truly from his heart in deep and characteristic honesty. And at one point, the emotion of the moment and all that led to that moment kind of just showed itself on his face. And the bailiff was instructed to bring tissues over to him, and he waved them off, not ashamed of the tears he was crying. I'm over there going, yeah, bring me the tissues. I need them. But he was recommended for his pardon. And the folks up at the bench, the board was, you know, sitting behind the judge's dais there, or whatever they call that deal. And they said, you know, your support team will not have to speak. I'm sorry if you've planned something for us, but that won't be necessary today. And you know, at that point, I was very tempted to, you know, may it please the court. Just a few. I think it was the immortal bard who said that the quality of mercy is not strained. I just nodded and hugged my friend, and we all kind of celebrated and left. So unfortunately, that's not the end of the story, because on this wonderful day, he experienced an awful tragedy as well last night. I spoke to him and his dear cousin, a woman who he thought of more as a sister since they grew up in the same household, and she was gunned down by the father of her children last night. And when I spoke to him, he was in a real rough and real dark place. And trying to make sense, which is what we do in those moments, right? We try to figure it out. Why did this happen? What did we do to deserve this? And of course, there's no answer to that. All I could do was tell him that I loved him, and that I didn't have any answers. And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to do as a human being, is to just stand there and say, yep, I don't know, but I love you, and I'll be here, and you know, I got your back. So I was reminded today of Greg Boyle, who always says that we're charged with kind of just being that tender gaze of God in those moments, and that the proper response is affectionate awe. Because I've never been asked to carry a fraction of what this man has carried. 2 years ago, I was the MC at the Philadelphia Folk Festival with my friend Christine Lavin, and on the final night, we got the call that my friend's daughter had been shot in a drive-by, and she was in critical condition. And I found that I couldn't even go on stage. That's how busted up I was about it. So anyway, I guess I'm going to do this song for my buddy. Because I don't have any answers, and I'm certainly not going to be able to help patch him up, but the only thing I could find myself able to muster was that my understanding of faith, as it's referred to in the Bible and in Scripture, is that it's not we're not called to believe specific dogma or specific stories about miracles. That's not what faith is. Faith is, at its essence, trust. So, I said, I hope you'll find a way to just turn this over and trust that God will be with you all as you go through it. I have a friend who used to climb the walls of stone cathedrals in the mountain halls, where mistakes you can't afford, nothing between him and the Lord but a piece of nylon cord in his two calloused hands. He found me trembling once in grievous fear. Illness might soon claim someone I held dear. And he said, once upon a time, when I was learning how to climb, somebody said the words that I'm about to say to you. Trust the rope. Trust the rope. Hold on tight and make a friend of it. Especially when you've reached the end of it. But don't lose hope. Trust the rope. There was this cliff face that he could not cross. No ledge to grab on, he was at a loss. His mind filled up with fear and doubt, until he heard his buddy shout, just let go and swing on out. It's gonna be okay. Trust the rope. Trust the rope. Hold on tight and make a friend of it. Especially when you've reached the end of it and you can't cope. Trust the rope. Some say ships are safe in harbors. That's not what folks who built ships had in mind. Tarzan swinging through the arbors has to put his faith in every vine. So trust the rope. You gotta trust the rope. Hanging out between heaven and hell. Hear a voice above you yell, don't say nope. Just trust the rope. I have not come to save you. When I look at you, I do not see a damsel in distress. I have not come to change you, your desperado soul. As perfect as it is, though I confess, you say I'm a sight for sore eyes, but I think you and me are both half blind. You can't see the beauty that's inside you, and I can't see quitting on a friend of mine. I have not come to heal you. You don't need to be cured. The scars we bear are holier than shrines. If tears can teach our eyes to see with tenderness the wounds that we've been tempted to despise. You say I'm a sight for sore eyes, but I think you and me are both half blind. You can't see the beauty that's inside you, and I can't see quitting on a friend of mine. Baby, love ain't nothing but a mirror, one that shows you who you really are. Maybe mine can show you someone you have been a stranger to so far. I have not come to fix you, for I know deep inside you're not and never have been powerless. But I will share the darkness that you are walking through until you find the light that you possess. You say I'm a sight for sore eyes, but I think you and me are both half blind. You can't see the beauty that's inside you, and I can't see quitting on a friend of mine. I ain't quitting on a friend of mine. Let's just check and see if there are more comments. It says can't post comments to some destinations. So I don't know what that means. But thought I'd sing this one tonight. Yesterday was Vietnam War Veterans Day. And 2 years ago I was asked to write a special song to commemorate this day, and got to perform down at the Veterans Memorial on the mall, at the wall. It was a very, very cold day. A very powerful experience to be with those old men and women and to share my song with them. And then this past summer they invited me to go to Orlando to sing at the Vietnam Veterans National Convention. So I got to sing it to even more of those amazing folks. And I received a wonderful honor, which I will never quite get my head around, but they voted me an honorary member of the Vietnam Veterans of America. Anyway, this is for some of the best of us. Some blood is deep and shared by birth. Some blood and tears are spilled on earth by those who serve and come to be part of A.D. jungles died to save their own, their names engraved in memory of kin and deeper family. This country stands on razor's edge. May we now turn to those who pledged their lives not to a government, but to a flag and what it meant to stand and answer duty's call. Remaining brothers, sisters, all, for now and ever they shall see themselves as deeper family. Our country stands on razor's edge. May we now learn from those who pledged their lives not to a government, but to a flag and what it meant. What would not heal, they chose to bear, with strength to feel and heart to share. From now and ever they shall be part of a deeper family. Their gift, lest we forget, has charged us with a solemn debt to bind our nation's wounds, that we may build a deeper family. Our country stands on razor's edge, indeed. And I'm starting to believe that reason and argument will not pull us back from the edge. And having been somewhat of a believer in reason and argument for my whole life, that's a sobering thing to realize. But I read something this week that really stuck with me, and it was about listening. And this guy had done the study on the power of deep listening. And it turns out that when someone with whom you completely disagree is talking, and just that is, in a sense, a good thing, you know, the fact that you're communicating. Anyway, it turns out that listening hard to what this person is saying and letting them know that you have heard what they're saying, maybe even, you know, when they're finished speaking, restating it for them exactly as you're receiving it, and asking them, is that what you're saying? Am I missing anything? Just so that they know that you're that invested in trying to understand. That act has more potential to change their attitude and bridge the gulf between you than anything that you're going to say in response to countermand or, show that they're an idiot. So, and that's a hard thing to get your mind around sometimes. But so don't give up on that. That's a lesson that I have to keep learning. 2 weeks out of prison, standing at the door, the man who'd married his ex-wife, the man who'd been providing for the family he had lost, taking his place in his child's life. He'd hidden down the block and watched his ex-wife drive away. He'd seen his little boy drive off with her. He rang the bell and waited till the man answered the door. To that frightened man he said these words: "Thank you for loving my son. I know he thought I abandoned him. It's good to know he's got someone. Thank you for loving my son." Humbly he stood there, speaking through that locked screen door, the grateful feeling in his soul of years he'd wake in prison, knowing someone kind would pour Cheerios into his child's bowl. He said, "I know from his mother that you treat him as your own, that the boy's been growing strong and true. He's better off without me, so don't tell him I was here. Mister, I just had to say to you, thank you for loving my son. I know he thought I abandoned him. It's good to know he's got someone. Thank you for loving my son." The man just said, "You're welcome," as he unlocked that screen door. They shook hands and he turned and walked away. Must have walked for hours, then he stopped into a church. He prayed and in his heart heard a voice say, "Thank you for loving my son. I know he thought I abandoned him. It's good to know he's got someone. Thank you for loving my son. Thank you for loving my son." So I got a book in the mail today from a friend named Jim Bowers. Jim used to teach political science at a college up in New York, and specialized in, well, he had one course about social justice in music, in the arts, and he brought me up to sing to his class and to perform a concert on campus. I guess this is probably about, I don't know, 7 years ago. And it was very cool for me because I went into his office and there was pictures of some of the social justice troubadours that meant something to him, on his wall. And it was Chris Christopherson and Phil Oakes Johnny Cash, and there was a picture of me, which just kind of blew my mind. And we got talking about Phil Ochs because Jim, we were talking about what was going on politically in the world and the MAGA Nation movement and all that stuff, and how Phil might have responded to it, and I said, man, I think he would have gone right at him, Phil was not content to just sing to lefties, sing to his small circle of friends, the people that agreed with him. Phil wanted to go out, and he wanted to, and towards the end he did. He adopted musical styles, rockabilly and more rock and roll styles, so that he could find his way to that audience, so that maybe he could open a door to some people who didn't see eye to eye with him. And I told Jim that was the one thing I really legitimately thought I had in common with Phil, because I wasn't that satisfied with singing just to the choir, singing, preaching to the choir. Anyway, he told me he was working on a book at the time, or he had an idea for a book about this whole thing, and I offered to introduce him to Phil's sister, Sonny Ochs, and to my old friend in Nashville, Al Cooley. Cooley was the first guy to sign me to a publishing contract back in like 1980 when I went to Nashville. He was with Combine Music. Probably the reason I know Chris Christopherson and Billy Swan and those guys is because of Cooley. Cooley used to be a writer, a reporter for Zoo magazine, and was a huge Phil Ochs fan, and had done many interviews with Phil, and had all these, had a lot of stuff that hadn't even been published, a lot of information that hadn't really been shared with the world. So I was able to turn Jim onto Cooley, and so he sent me a book, and I don't think I've ever seen my name in the acknowledgments before. It was an honor to be thanked in print, and I just started digging into it this afternoon, and decided I would do a Phil song tonight. So. Incidentally, Helen Light is back on I don't know if you call it the radio. She has a Sunday morning acoustic show on Folk Music Notebook. So if you like folk music, or you're a fan of Helen Light, subscribe to the Folk Music Notebook app. It's free. You can hear Helen and some really cool music every Sunday morning at 10. The reason I'm giving you this little plug is that last week she opened the show with Imagine by John Lennon, and then she played this song by Phil Ochs, and then she played Dover by John Flynn, and then she played For What It's Worth by Stephen Stills and the Buffalo Springfield. So I thought that was pretty cool. I marched to the Battle of New Orleans at the end of the early British wars. The young land started growing, the young blood started flowing. I ain't marching anymore. I killed my share of Indians in 1,000 different fights. I was there at the Little Bighorn. I heard many men lying, I saw many more dying. I ain't marching anymore. It's always the old that lead us to the wars, always the young to fall. Look at all we done with a saber and a gun. Tell me, is it worth it all? I stole California from the Mexican lands. I fought in your bloody Civil War. I even killed my brother men and so many other men. I ain't marching anymore. of the German trench in the war that was bound to end all wars. Hell, I must have killed 1,000,000 men, and now they want me back again. I ain't marching anymore. It's always the rich that lead us to the wars, always the poor to fall. And look at all we won with a saber and a gun. Tell me, is it worth it all? Alright, through the final mission in the Japanese skies, yeah, I set off the mighty mushroom roar. When I saw the cities burning, I knew that I was learning. I ain't marching anymore. Now they scream of atrocities as terror reigns, and they say we won't take it anymore. Well, call it peace or call it treason, call it love or call it reason. I ain't marching anymore. I ain't marching anymore. That song digs in. A couple nights ago, I dreamt I wrote a special song. It wasn't complicated and it wasn't very long. I dreamt I took my old guitar, played it in the streets. People gathered round to hear a simple song of peace. It started as a tiny crowd, would soon become a throng. And everyone who heard me sing began to sing along. Their voices then were lifted up and carried on the breeze, till all across the land was heard a simple song of peace. From east and west, from north and south, I heard a single choir. The singing seemed to take away our fear, though times were dire. Then news from around the world said war and violence ceased, as love at last was set free by a simple song of peace. I shook my head, remembering the long and lonely years, when every song I wrote would seem to fall upon deaf ears. Yet all those moments of self-doubt had somehow led to these. Tears filled my eyes then as I sang that simple song of peace. child in the crowd came up and tugged upon my sleeve. He said, "You're only dreaming, John. Now it's time to leave." And just before I woke, I whispered to myself, "Oh, please, when you wake, do not forget the simple song of peace." I woke and lay in darkness in those hours before the dawn, anguish to discover that the song of peace was gone, till birds outside my window started singing in the trees, and I smiled to hear again a simple song of peace. There's a simple song of peace in each and everything, rocks and birds and trees and waters. If we're listening, we're all radios tuned in to quantum frequencies. The universe is singing us a simple song of peace. Well, just for the heck of it, a little commercial. You can get any song you want at my B.A.D on Friday night. Well, maybe not any song, but there's a handful of people who have supported this over the years. We started this, back when everything was all locked up because of the pandemic, and it was kind of a way for us to have a little kind of stay in touch with the community, our little tribe, our little family. And certainly as my bookings started to get slim, I was anxious to just have a chance to sing and play for folks. So I've appreciated you being part of this. Bookings seem to have thickened up a bit, which is was certainly unexpected. I got a call this week from a fella in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and I was talking about that show at Kane's Ballroom earlier with Danny Timms and Rodney Crowell and Chris Christopherson, Ramblin' Jack some years back. Anyway, this guy was in the audience at that show, and he runs a little venue in Guthrie, Oklahoma. I don't think it's any relation to Woody or Arlo, but it's outside of Oklahoma City, and booked me to play a date in May, and it's a $75 ticket. It's like, oh my God! I said, do you know how deeply unpopular I am? Are you crazy? He said, no, trust me. He said, this venue, people know that the music that I'm going to bring is really good, and like people like Michael Martin Murphey, have played there, and Larry Gatlin, and like all these big names. So the week before, that's the week before I play the Kerrville Folk Festival in Kerrville, Texas, and I get to also be the MC of their new song or new folk songwriting contest. And just before I went on tonight, I got a call from Columbia, Maryland. Uptown Concerts is booking me to play a 500-seat venue in the Temple Isaiah, in I guess it's Fulton, Maryland. That'll be coming up in January. And what was amazing, the person that booked me said that when the Temple set up this folk series, the two performers that they insisted be booked were Tom Chapin and me. So maybe my rehearsal for retirement was a little premature. I can't explain it. That's for sure. Anyway, I'm going to do one more song and wish you all the happiest of holidays. I'm going to get to spend Easter with some of my kids. And this is a kind of an Easter song, a story song, if you will. And it's a song that's been very close to me in my life. And if religions are indeed fingers pointing at the moon, I believe that this story points in the right direction. The child had no pillow, the child had no cradle, which he could rest his weary head. A few handfuls of barn straw were all that lay between him and the wooden planks that were his bed. We laid him down boards of a manger, laid him down on the boards of a cross. His whole life was the price we asked him to pay for loving us, just for loving us. He was a simple tradesman who then became a teacher. He spoke of miracles that love could do. He told us of his Father, of gentleness and mercy. How did we receive him, me and you? We laid him down on the boards of a manger. We laid him down on the boards of a cross. His whole life was the price we asked him to pay for loving us, just for loving us. In the end, there was not one who would stand with him. In the end, when he was dying on his tree, in the end, he hung there calling to his Father, why have you forsaken me? Why have you forsaken me? He said, please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He closed his eyes and bowed his head. A couple days later, an angel asked a woman, why seek the living here among the dead? You laid him down on the boards of a manger. Laid him down on the boards of a cross. His whole life is the price you asked him to pay for loving us. Laid his whole life was the price we asked him to pay for loving us. Just for loving us. Child had no cradle, child had no pillow on which he could rest his weary head. You guys have a good holiday, and I will be in Vermont next weekend doing some shows up there, but I will see you in a couple weeks. And thanks for being here. Good night.